So welcome to the Ohio Peace and Conflict Studies Network and the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflicts Peace Education webinar series. We are happy to have join us today one of our colleagues here in Ohio from Bluffton University, Louise Matthews, who will be sharing with us more about the Lion and Lamb Peace Arts Center, teaching peace through literature and the arts. She'll share about her work at the Lion and Lamb Peace Arts Center with students, kindergarten through undergraduate and adults, as well as incarcerated youth and people recovering from addictions by incorporating literature, music, art, and all appropriate means, as stated in the mission statement. Picture books and art provide a foundation for conversations about peace and justice, cultural understanding, and nonviolent responses to conflict. Violence is reframed to discuss peace. Tolerance is reframed to promote acceptance. State-mandated bully prevention initiatives in public schools can be reframed to address topics of kindness, respect, and accepting differences. Rationale for this approach and recommended books for audiences of all ages are included, with opportunity to explore settings for effective use of art and literature. And Louise Matthews is the director of the Lion and Lamb Peace Arts Center at Bluffton University. We're very thankful that she's joining us today and volunteering her time to share her expertise. She received an associate's degree from Heston College, Heston, Kansas, and a bachelor's degree in elementary education, K-8, from Bluffton University. Louise taught in several school systems before she began teaching her 5 children at home, taking advantage of resources and programs through the Lion and Lamb when it began in 1987. Louise began her service as director of the center in 2004. Her Anabaptist peace heritage lays a solid foundation for her efforts at the center, informing her passion for connecting readers of all ages with the power of literature and art for addressing issues of peace and justice in the world around us. And Louise will share a little bit more about the center. So thank you for joining us today, and going to turn it over now to Louise so she can tell you a little bit more.
Thank you, Jen. It's my privilege to be part of this webinar series, and today I want to share a bit about Bluffton University and what we have to offer in regards to peace and conflict. We have a minor in peace and conflict studies. We have cross-cultural opportunities for students to go abroad. We have peace collections in our college library, as well as a broad selection of resources here at the Lion and Lamb. Mainly picture books and teacher resources. Our program today, shall I push the share now to bring up my slideshow? My program today begins with Bluffton University's mission statement as a way to emphasize the fact that we are based on a historic peace church tradition, Mennonite, Anabaptist. Many of our students do not come from a historic peace church tradition, and so what we have to offer them is a broader view of peace, not just whether there's violence, but a broad range of the dimensions of peace that we address here. I've highlighted Bluffton's mission statement here, and I think it's significant as I begin sharing some of the art that we have around campus, the sculptures. We have small models here at the center that I'm able to use in reference with students and children to be able to lay a foundation for conversations about peace and justice. So Bluffton University's mission statement states, shaped by the historic peace church tradition and nourished by a desire for excellence in all phases of its programs, Bluffton University seeks to prepare students of all backgrounds for life as well as vocation, for responsible citizenship, for service to all peoples, and ultimately for the purposes of God's universal kingdom. So the Lion and Lamb Peace Arts Center is a resource here on campus. It is a combination of an art gallery, a library collection, and a resource center for programs. And our mission statement is here at the top of this next slide, along with several views included in our brochure. the focus of the center is to incorporate all appropriate means, but especially literature and art. And so we promote the study of peace and justice, cultural understanding, and nonviolent responses to conflict. And I especially like the first part where it talks about through all appropriate means, because it opens up so many different avenues for talking about peace. As we are using as we're using literature, we focus on picture books because picture books tend to be relevant lessons for all of us in life, and sometimes as college students or adults, we need to be reminded of some of the important things that we learned when we were children. And so it's a way of planting seeds for peace and also watering the plants that are growing, encouraging people to actually continue to be relevant. I have a website here, but we'll focus on that near the end of the program then. So one of the main sculptures, as you can see here, it's called Constellation Earth, and it's right in the middle of College Avenue. Down here in the left-hand corner, you can also see a smaller model that we have here at the Lion and Lamb that I use for programs. For almost every group that comes in, I use that partly because Bluffton's sculpture out in the middle of College Avenue is so visible. And I'll have to admit that when the college decided to purchase and display this sculpture right out in the middle of the College Avenue, I realized that I tend to avoid conflict and controversy, and recognizing this sculpture right out in the middle where everybody can see it, it made me a little unsettled. But then I realized the connection to Bluffton's mission statement and recognized the power of this visual in collaboration with the statement, recognizing Bluffton as a global community, wanting all to be included. And Constellation Earth here is made of human bodies instead of stars, and it forms a visual that helps us think about the people around the world. There's 7 bodies to represent the 7 continents, and they're all interconnected, hands and feet touching in ways that the continents don't actually touch if you're looking at the land masses. And also, you probably noticed that these bodies don't have clothing. It's a way for me to actually help children and people to think about the fact that it represents that we're all very similar. And then if we start adding clothing and culture and languages and religions, then human nature tends to focus on the negative, or not on the negative, on the differences. And then when we notice differences, then we start separating ourselves. And so differences can sometimes be divisive, but using this sculpture as a visual helps us think and remember that we really are very similar, and we don't need to be always focusing on our differences, although it's important to be aware of them and to acknowledge them, but also to recognize and celebrate the differences. So this is one of the sculptures here on campus that really reflects Bluffton University's mission statement well. A lot of the students who come to Bluffton may not be from peace traditions, or may have different worldviews that don't quite fit into this visual where all of us are included, no one's out. It helps us think about welcoming all students of all backgrounds. And so hopefully this is a way of visualizing that. Now, we also acknowledge that other people have a choice how to accept or exclude or include people in their circle of friends and in their circle of involvement. So it's important for us to use this as a visual for what Bluffton stands for, but recognizing that all of us have an opportunity to choose how to interact with others. Another sculpture is Jonah and the Whale. This sculpture is in the Honda Peace Garden right outside the Lion and Lamb. You can see the size of it based on the contrast with the children. And then there's a smaller model here at the Lion and Lamb as well. This represents the impact of Jonah's choice, when he chose not to obey God. You can see the Jonah on the bottom. He's carrying the weight of the whale. The Jonah at the top reflects the freedom and peace of mind that comes with making a decision to do what he knows he needs to do in the first place. And so sometimes when we think about this as a reflection of choices, we recognize that sometimes we're carrying a guilty conscience because we're not doing what we know we ought to be doing. But by using this Jonah sculpture, we also recognize that we have the power at any point to, turn and do what we need to do to make a difference. It might be apologizing to somebody. It might be paying restitution. It may be just working at resolving conflicts or returning things, whatever happens to be on your heart and your mind. And so this reflects the need for inner peace. The sculpture down here on the left is a model that we have here inside the center, but you'll notice the children sitting on 3 large granite rocks, and then there's stones around the outside as well. This represents the cultures where there may have been warring tribes just trying to resolve conflicts with violence, and recognizing that what's left is death and destruction and devastation, and recognizing the power of actually coming together to find common ground, to talk about what they want for their group of people, and then talking about how can we do this without the violence, without killing each other in the process. And it's understandable that many conflicts can be resolved by dialogue, by listening, as well as sharing what we want. But we also recognize that sometimes we can't resolve everything to the best of everybody's preferences. And so even agreeing with the things that we have in common, and then agreeing not to hurt each other or use violence in the process of trying to resolve the rest of the conflict. This sculpture was actually installed about the same time that a former president of Bluffton University wrote a letter to the 3 Yugoslavian presidents who were meeting in Dayton at the time for the Dayton Accord. And he wrote a letter to the 3 presidents and said, we have just installed this sculpture on our campus as a way of thinking about resolving conflicts without violence. And he said, I would love to invite all 3 of you to come and sit on Bluffton's campus to talk, to listen, to work out your differences and find ways to be able to resolve the conflict, and let your people see that you have the power to bring peace, not war. And so this was a very timely connection in regard to the Dayton Accord. The Peace Wall in Moongate, you see the picture at the bottom there. It has multiple sections of it. On the right, you see a memorial wall similar to the Vietnam Memorial, and then a stockade wall and prison bars, and then what looks like it could have been the Berlin Wall. And then on the far left is what we call the Moongate. These sections have names of people who worked for peace. Especially on the stockade wall, there are the names of Native Americans who worked for peace. Prison bars have names of people who were imprisoned either for civil disobedience or because they did not want to go to war. But many names are included there as a way of helping us recognize the power of walls. Sometimes walls are used to keep people in, to keep others out, to keep us safe, to keep to memorialize people. So the names on this wall also are a way of helping us recognize the power of each one of us deciding for ourselves what we would do to make the world a better place. The Moongate is a way of acknowledging the ongoing circle of life. There's a sidewalk and steps that go up and in front of the wall. And then as people pass through the Moongate, we ask them to think about ways that they can eliminate the walls, the figurative walls, as well as literal walls, that separate us in our society. We recognize that there are several walls in our world right now where the United States are involved in building walls, and sometimes walls create issues as well as thinking that they're actually going to solve the problems. So it just helps us think through those situations.
Louise, this is amazing. I had no idea that your university had this amazing art collection related to peace and conflict resolution. And I was wondering, I see clearly that you give tours to students, from the schools. Do you also offer those outside to maybe if there are other colleges or universities who'd like to visit and have a tour and think about how art is used around peace and conflict, or how does that work?
I have actually created what I call a peace arts tour that we actually walk around campus, and we actually take a look at these sculptures and talk about them. I have a website on our Lion and Lamb page that actually has Bluffton listed for being one of the sites around the world that actually has peace art. And it has been several years ago, but the man who's putting the website together put Bluffton University as the third highest peace art per capita location in the world. Now, we recognize that Bluffton's very small, but Bluffton also has a huge number of sculptures around campus, as well as here at the Lion and Lamb. So we do have a very large collection. So I would be happy to host an event if people wanted to come to Bluffton after this health restriction is lifted. But that would also be something that we could offer if people were interested.
Very, very exciting. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And then one of the other ways that we address themes of peace is using picture books. And this is one of my favorite ones because regardless of the group, sometimes it's adult groups. I met with the Curriculum Council at the Lima City Schools event before the school year started several years ago. I use this with student teachers or with the Introduction to Teaching class. I read this book to the students. It's a conversation between a kid and an ant on the sidewalk that the kid is about to squish. And it goes back and forth, a conversation, because the ant tries to justify his existence, and the kid is just saying, you're worthless, like you're not, nobody would mind if I squished you, nobody would care, nobody would notice. And it's a conversation back and forth, and it's interesting as we think about relationships and an imbalance of power, how things can really quickly get out of hand. And so on the right-hand side, where you see the ant is very oversized and the kid is at the bottom, it says, and the ant is speaking, I can see you're big and strong. Decide for yourself what's right and wrong. If you were me and I were you, what would you want me to do? And then the lower picture with the sneaker and the tiny ant again says, should the ant get squished? Should the ant go free? It's up to the kid, not up to me. We'll leave the kid with the raised up shoe. What do you think the kid should do? So this is an opportunity to think about, so if we are teachers and principals and coaches in a school system, how could each of our roles be able to use this with students? Or in a classroom, with student teachers, how could this be incorporated? Finding opportunities in history, like when was there an imbalance of power between countries or between people, when one country treated another country like a little ant and squished them, or the vulnerability or the threat of violence. This book is a really good way to provide an opportunity to reflect and think It leaves us with a question. It doesn't give us answers. And so even with this, it's kind of open-ended, and we can decide. This is just one of the examples of picture books that I use. This is just a handful of other sculptures around campus. I'll highlight them briefly, but there are so many others as well. Up at the top, it says, accept differences and be kind. I have a plaque that's called the ABCs of Life, and there are 26 letters of the alphabet and 26 different things that are, good lessons to learn and remember. And when I do programs, I often say, there are 26 things on this plaque, and we're just going to learn A and B, and I'm going to test you on it when we're done. And so we read accept differences, and we read be kind, and then I hide it and ask the students to be able to say, okay, now here's the test. What is A and what is B? And then I say, well, that's the first test, and the second test is, can you apply it? It's easy to say those things, but it's not as easy to actually apply it. And so just using that as a relevant application for what we're doing. The sculpture below it is called Touching Home, and it's the memorial sculpture that was created in 2007 after the bus accident where 5 of our baseball players and the bus driver and his wife were killed. It is actually out near Memorial Field, and I use this as a way to help children recognize that art and sculpture can be used as a way to remember people, but also as a sacred space to grieve, to be able to reflect. And so this is a class of children putting their hands in the hand marks of the baseball players who survived. And then on the home plate there are 5 imprints of the cleats of the students who perished. And so recognizing the power of using sculptures in our loss and grief. The lower picture is a labyrinth that Bluffton has, 3 continuous circles where we follow silently as we're thinking, meditating, and I lead the way with the students. The top center is a sculpture called Trail of Prayers, based on the Native American being forced to leave their homes and move west. This woman is a life-sized bronze sculpture, and it's a grandmother who's praying, and it's a way of helping us recognize that we need more peace in the world and less oppression. It's also a reminder that even in the midst of grief and turmoil and oppression and violence, we still need to figure out a way to go on, to be able to find peace in the midst of that. And so it's a reflection of both the need for peace and the search for peace in our hearts. Top right-hand corner, this photo was taken from the side where you can't see the man on the other side, and there are children around it standing. We're discussing it. It's called Reaching Their Goal One Step at a Time. And the man and the horse are both very weary, and as you can see, it looks like a hard journey uphill. And also recognizing that as we face difficulties in life, or as we face life in general, we aren't alone, and there are ways to encourage each other along the way. The man could be riding the horse instead of walking alongside. But we also recognize that sometimes it takes a little sacrifice in order to do what is best for all involved. And so they're both trudging. The lower center is kind of a crazy piece of art, and it might be hard to see with the things in the background, but it's called Running Dog with Monkey, and it's a greyhound and a monkey on its back, all made out of bronze. It's a little whimsical, and so you may not necessarily call it a peace sculpture. But when we think about differences, for example, lions and lambs, we recognize that sometimes we have to do things that don't come natural. In this case, the monkey is riding on its back, but it's facing backwards, and the greyhound is running forward, thinking about being friends with different perspectives. It might appear that the monkey's the one who is benefiting from this arrangement, but we also recognize that the dog is not alone. They have companionship because they are together. It represents looking at life from different perspectives, and we tell our students, you know, it might surprise you to recognize the unlikely friendships that you can form here at Bluffton, people that you may not have thought you could become friends with because of differences. But if you give yourself a chance and interact and sometimes be uncomfortable, take the initiative to build friendships, to get to know people who seem different, we can sometimes surprise ourselves with the relationships that are formed. The sculpture on the right is a very tall collection of chimes. It's called Peace Sounds. It's interesting when I'm interacting with children and we talk about sounds that are peaceful. Sometimes they need to be reminded that when they're up on the playground and yelling and laughing and having a lot of fun, but also making noise, to me, that is the sound of peace. Children are playing. They're not fighting. It's just a way of enjoying life. And so reminding them that peace doesn't always mean peace and quiet. It just means reflecting the fact that we're getting along. So this is just a handful of the sculptures that I include in the Peace Art Trail around campus.
What is the total, Louise, you might have already mentioned this, but what are the total number of sculptures or pieces of art that you have related to peace and conflict? Do you have any idea what the total is? Or
that's a good question. When I do the art tour with children, I use a passport, and so I highlight about 12 or 15, but that it doesn't include some of the ones indoors, and it doesn't include quite everything. It only includes the things that I can get around to in an hour and a half.
Sure, great, thank you.
Yeah. And I hadn't thought about actually including the Peace Tour passport, you know, the list of sculptures, but that would have also been a resource. One of the other things that I want to mention here is the fact that I'm listing 3 peace resources here with Bluffton Connections. The first one is called Swords to Plowshares. It's a picture book about the creation of our first art professor's project when he created a medallion made out of bullets when he was living in Russia during the Russian Revolution. And he made a medallion, and you'll see in the picture there on the book, as well as in the case, a picture of the medallion that he created in order to give to the people, who, the Mennonites from the United States who had come to Russia to bring relief aid and food to them during the Russian Revolution. And so then John Paul Clausen is the artist, the art teacher from Russia who made the medallion. And then his family first moved to Canada and then to the United States when he was asked to be Bluffton's first art professor. So that picture book was written by Lisa Weaver, and The Lion and Lamb is the publisher. And this is one of the resources that we have to offer. These books are actually for sale, so if anybody wanted to follow up with me, you could order one of these books as well. Another book that Bluffton put together, Teaching Peace, Nonviolence, and the Liberal Arts. It was edited by by 2 of our professors, and multiple professors here at Bluffton wrote chapters about how they incorporate peace into their studies. And there's probably about 25 professors who are included in this book. A third resource that Bluffton has created is called Education with the Grain of the Universe, a Peaceable Vision for Universities and Colleges. So this one was also created, and we had a reading a book club here at the college for us as faculty and staff to read through that and have discussions on each of the chapters throughout. And then I have a song that I usually sing with the children. For me, this is the focus of our work here at the center. It reminds me that I can't stop the wars, I can't stop violence, but I can do things right here, right now, that make the world a better place. And it's a reminder that each one of us can. And I think the power of all of our colleges and universities having peace studies means that we're also speaking into the lives of students to help them recognize the power of whatever they choose to do for the sake of peace. And we're not alone in this, we're actually together. So I am going to be a little more courageous than usual and actually sing this for you, because the power of music for me is part of the beauty of using the arts as we're talking about peace. So bear with me, sing along, hum along, whatever you like. I can make the world a better place to be. All it takes is kindness and truth to set us free. Every act of kindness is an act of peace. I can make the world a better place to be. Whisper it, shout it, don't you ever doubt it. I can make the world a better place to be.
Wonderful.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Louise. So great. So we have the questions and comments now, and I have a few of those for you, Louise.
Okay.
And so this is did you want to take us to the website before we take
I can give it a try. Let me
Okay,
see if this works.
do it.
Can you see it?
No, it looks like it's frozen on our screen here. Maybe
Okay, let me go to the PowerPoint and close out of that and see if that helps.
Okay.
So tell me what you see here as I'm trying to log in. Are you seeing anything?
Sure. We're seeing you right now.
Okay. I have this up. Let me see. Let me push share.
There we go. We see your web page.
Okay, perfect. So this is the website, the mission statement, programs, resources, Honda Peace Sculpture Garden. Let me give that a try and see if it actually opens up. So these are the sculptures that are out in the Peace Garden. I just submitted some pictures this morning of the Peace Wall to be included, but you'll see the names of the people and just a little brief explanation of what they did for peace. This list goes on and on.
Wow, that's fabulous.
So these names are all on the wall, the stockade walls, names of Native Americans, prison gates that have names of people. Some of them you'll know, some of them you won't. The beautiful thing is that there are people doing wonderful things that we'll never know about, but the important thing is just to keep doing it.
So could we just slowly look at a couple of the names there?
Sure.
So because we see, there we go, for the Granite Memorial Wall. So Oscar Romero, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, wonderful. Harriet Tubman, just looking sort of slowly there. And it looks like you have Mother Teresa. You have a number of, Stephen Biko from South Africa. So you also have a lot of international individuals that have done important work around peace and conflict resolution. Wonderful.
Coleman McCarthy at the Center for Teaching Peace in DC. He's been on campus multiple times.
Great.
So,
well, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Are there some other things on the page that you wanted to share with us
Yes.
before we have questions? Okay, great.
So can you see this slide?
Yes, the Peace
Okay.
Monuments at Bluffton University.
Yes, so this is the one that went black for us before. So this one has, I see it doesn't have all the pictures of them here, but they are explanations of many of the pieces that are around campus. So by looking at this, you get a sense of some of the things that would be in the Peace Arts Trail that I have around campus.
That's exciting.
There is also another resource here. These are 68 Friends of Peace monuments, meaning that we have access on our campus or somewhere near us. And you'll see here, Bluffton, Ohio, Louise Matthews, and the Lion and Lamb Peace Arts Center. So then this is a way to log into that. And that would be it for this website.
Okay.
It also has a place here for literature. If you're interested in checking out or seeing what we have available, I've also created a site here that has some director's choice books that I love to use for our resources or for our programs. And so it has the titles and the authors. It has a very small statement from the book. Sometimes it's the punchline, sometimes it's not. And then it provides a link then to go to the college website. But these picture books here are powerful tools for all of us thinking about you know, peace and justice, kindness, cultural understanding.
That's wonderful. Do you have, I'm sorry, did you say that do you have a bibliography or something somewhere of books that you have in the library, or how would people find what books you have, or how would they get access to the book?
Okay, so going to this literature page here, if I type in something like kindness and submit this, I don't know if it'll actually do. Okay, so this has the books in the Lion and Lamb collection that relate to kindness. And this one, Kindness Starts With You, and then this one would be a teacher resource, Create a Culture of Kindness in Middle School, 48 character building lessons to foster respect and prevent bullying. There are multiple books listed. Actually, I'm somewhere, it says 47 results found. So that gives you a sense of what to look for. If you want to search other things, that would be a way to do it. There is a list here under bibliographies, a list of the themes that we cover: abilities and disabilities, aging, appreciating diversity, arts, creation, care, different perspectives, families, and so on.
That's wonderful.
So these are the topics that we have in general. And if you want to search one of these topics, then up here, it would also give you access to a list of things that we have.
Wonderful. So it looks like we had someone join us here at the end. So,
okay.
Kasha, so the webinar started a bit ago, so we were nearing the end here, Kasha, but the webinar will be archived so that you'll be able to access it. And but we also have some time now, and we were going to take questions of Louise from the Lion and the Lamb Peace Arts Center. Did you have some other things to share with us as well, Louise, on the website?
That was about it.
Okay, great.
Unless somebody has questions.
Okay. So one of the things that I was thinking about as you shared your collection of books is how this links to, at least here in the United States, most of the states have social emotional learning standards.
Yes.
Which, when you looked at that, the different areas that the topics that you had,
yes,
whether it's kindness or thinking about empathy and how we develop that, I could see a lot of links with literature to some
yes.
of the topics that you had.
That's exactly right.
Great, great. And I appreciate that you had the bibliography, where the searchable bibliography. And I would love to actually send out a note to the colleges and the universities that it would be possible for them to maybe bring a group of students for a peace arts tour. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. As well as I would be happy to do a program with their students as well. The art tour around campus could be part of it, but we could also use the center here. You'll notice in the picture that I have here on the website, there's a large mural in the background, and then on the wall, it has the music for I Can Make the World a Better Place. Those are just two of the pieces of art that are here around the center as well. So I would be happy to help plan a visit to campus. It could include a meal in our dining hall and possibility of making connection with students as well. So I would be happy to explore the possibilities.
That's wonderful. And as I recall, you have a large collection actually of original art from those who illustrated children's books.
That's true.
Correct? Is that what I remember?
Yes.
Do you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
So some of our original art here is connected to picture books. We have Sadako and the 1,000 Paper Cranes, written by Eleanor Coor. We have the art from that book around the top of our bookcases here. That was purchased from the illustrator. Each piece was sponsored by someone or a church or a congregation or a family when the center was first started in 1987. And so that was one of our first collections of art that we got. And so it's a fairly familiar book, the story about a 12-year-old girl in Hiroshima, Japan, who got leukemia because of the bomb. And so it tells her story, but also has the illustrations. And so that is part of our connection here. The center was created by an education professor who taught children's literature. So she knew many authors and illustrators personally. And so some of this art here is donated from those people to her, and then she donated it to the center as some of the beginning work here.
That's exciting. Well, I really hope that people take advantage of this amazing resource here in Ohio. Mm-hmm. And let me go ahead before we close here. Kasha's joined us. Kasha, would you like to share a little bit more about your interest in this particular webinar? And if you have any questions, you would need to unmute yourself if you're going to. All right, maybe not. So, well, thank you so much, Louise. And one of the things that I'd like to do is go ahead and send out to our partners and also on the Peace and Justice Studies Association listserv, as well as the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflicts listserv, is more information about the amazing sculptures that you have there. And I'm so excited that you have the third highest number of peace art per capita. You said in the world or in the United States?
It was in the world, I think. I will follow up on that information and make a contact and just see where we stand now.
I'm excited about that. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
For those of you who are not familiar with the Ohio Peace and Conflict Studies Network's webinar series, these will be archived on the Ohio Peace and Conflict Studies Network's webpage. And do you mind, Louise, maybe taking us to that webpage so we can just show them that instead of switching over?
Going back to the PowerPoint?
Yeah, to the Ohio Peace and Conflict Studies Network, actually.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, if you don't mind. And that way we can share where exactly folks could go to find the additional future webinars and then the yours when it's archived here. Great. Great.
This is it.
Great. Thank you so much. So for those of you who may be taking a look or interested in the future of some additional of webinars, you would go to the resources page up in the top right-hand corner, click on that, and you'll be able to access the webinars. And Louise, if you don't mind going over to the, clicking up, right up at the top on the left, the red word that says OPCSN webinars under resources. Great. And so people will be able to see the past webinars and the ones coming up from this page. So thank you so much for joining us. And Louise, if people are interested in following up more, where should they go? Should they email you? Should they go to the Lion the Lambs webpage? How should they contact you?
I don't mind if they contact me directly. My email address is lionlamb@bluffton.edu.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you again for generously giving of your time to share the exciting resources that you have there at the Lion and the Lamb at Bluffton University.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.